everybody. This is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at American Flagg, number 7 through 9, encompassing the story arc State of the Union. We're going to be continuing our ongoing examination of this fine series from Howard Chaykin and friends. Let's start with number 7, The Blizzard of 32. I'm already a little annoyed here because Leslie Zaller's coloring. She does a lot of this. Like everyone's got pink faces, or I don't know. I really miss Lynn Varley. I just can't get over it. But it's still a very fun issue and just amazing plot twists and intrigue. So as we learned last story arc, Chicago was under like 3 feet of snow due to a rogue weather satellite that was activated. So many people are like starving, they're homeless. It's a diaspora. And the Plex is, all the Plex Rangers are shepherding all these people. They call them dispers. They're getting them into the mall for their own safety and for their own good. So all these poor starving people are heading towards the mall, and the Plexus Rangers are, keeping order. We see inside the mall, they've set up this Silverville, which is like where these dispers will live. They made room for them. This is a reference, obviously, to Hoovervilles from the Great Depression, named after President Herbert Hoover, which they ironically named these shanty towns after him. In this world, the president's name is Silver, and that's why that is the case. We can already see that there's animosity towards these dispers from the mall residents. This guy is scrubbing off some dispers go home graffiti. So, people aren't digging it. Now we cut away to Gretchen and the madam of the local Love Canal franchise. And she's with her lover, Ernesto Klein Hernandez, the representative from Brazil. Their relationship is really deepening. I mean, they're pretty much in love. Even though he's got a wife back home, it's not like it's beyond just having sex. And especially for Gretchen, she's been a prostitute her whole life, whole adult life. And for her, love was always a financial transaction. And this is the first time where she's like, oh my God, I really care for someone and I'm in love with this guy. So because of their lovemaking, Ernesto is late for his meeting with Esther de la Cristo. She's like the richest woman in Brazil. Her family fortune props up the economy of Brazil, basically. So Ernesto's a lot of his job is just keeping her happy and being her little lapdog. So she's furious that he's late. She insults Gretchen very cruelly, and so Gretchen takes off. And she's saying, you've got to convince Reuben Flagg to permit us to visit Chicago immediately. And he says, Esther, that's illegal. So then Mandy shows up. And Esther's being all extra nice. She's like, oh, have you seen Reuben? And Mandy says, I'm heading to the ranger station right now, actually. So you want to tag along? And she's like, oh, that's splendid. I've got a favor to ask Flagg. Perhaps you could help me persuade him. And Mandy's just like, this lady. So they get to the station, and Raoul the cat has got prosthetic hands now, all of a sudden. And he's loving it. He's typing. Reuben's going to teach him how to drive next week. He says, I never knew what I was missing till I got thumbs. So they ask Raoul, where's Reuben? And he says, a couple of dispers hijacked a produce truck. Reuben's out running him down with Snicker, the new deputy. And we'll find out why Snicker in a page or two. So Reuben and his new deputy are on the trail of these guys, these hijackers. And Reuben is just muttering under his breath. He's like, motherfucker, this fucking Mayor Blitz. I do all the shit for him. And this new deputy, what do I get? And here we go. I get Luther Ironheart. It's a robot deputy with a hologram face. And Luther is just not that bright, but he's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's screaming at the guys, "Okay, you commie rat fascist subversive bastards, Luther's here. No quarter asked, none given." And Ruben's like, so much for the element of surprise. So he just keeps goofing out. And Ruben's constantly just like saying, "Damn it, Luther, hold your fire." So they attack the guys. And he's got to tell Luther to ease off a little, you know. They're just starving people. They're not, hardened criminals. And he just keeps saying, "Damn it, Luther." And Luther says, "Ruben, could I ask you a favor? Could you lighten up on the damn it, Luthers? I'm beginning to think damn it's my first name." So he's kind of like this softy. I really like Luther. He's going to be a major character throughout the rest of American Flagg. That's his introduction. So Ruben is on his way to QUSA, his pirate television station. Apparently, because of all this craziness going on, it's gone to shit. The station is like malfunctioning, and he's got to check in on it. He's got to figure out what's going on. But on the way, he's hungry, so he stops in at this diner. And the next panel, he's cooking for the owner. Apparently, she's a terrible cook. So whenever Ruben goes there, he cooks for her. And here we see the introduction of Dr. Titania Weiss. She's the local doctor. And she says, "Wow, something actually smells edible in here." And he's like, "Pleased to meet you. I'm Ruben Flagg." She recognizes him from his acting days. And he invites her to join them for spaghetti frittata. And I love this that Howard Chaykin does this. On the inside front cover, we get the recipe for spaghetti frittata, if you're interested in eating what Ruben Flagg eats. But then all of a sudden, this Jeep shows up, a drive-by, and shoots into the diner. Mrs. Ruben. But the people who actually were driving the car, it looks like the husband, I think this is a husband and wife, the husband was shot by the hitchhiker they picked up. So I guess they picked up this hitchhiker, he pulled out a gun, shot him, and then that was just he wasn't aiming for Ruben. It was just a stray shot. So Ruben runs after this van and like fucking like Spider-Man here. All of a sudden, Ruben's like a superhero. And he kicks the guy out of the cab. And the van, drives into a snowbank. And Ruben proceeds to kick the guy's ass. He's going to take him in. But there's all these other dispers there. And all they see is an authority figure kicking the shit out of one of them. So they're not having it. So they grab Ruben and they let the guy escape. Titania Weiss comes out of the diner with a gun and shoots it into the sky to scare him off. And then she says, "I'm going to need your assistance. I have to do some emergency surgery on that guy." So right on the tabletop or the diner counter, she does the surgery. Excuse me. Ruben's not very good. He's like almost passing out from the sight of blood. And she says, "Oh man, I'm exhausted after that. Could you do me a favor? I've got this holo schematic for an experimental prosthetic device. Could you take it into Jerry Rig at the mall for full resolution?" And Ruben agrees, and she's like, "Oh, thank you. I'll pick it up the day after tomorrow, whenever it's ready." So when she gets in her car, she gets a phone call, and it's from Decker. If you remember, Decker is the faceless head of the ASLC. We still haven't seen what he looks like. Titania Weiss says, I've been expecting your call. And he asks her, he says, "I trust the designs for the device have been delivered to the mall." She says, "Yeah, I'll pick it up the day after Christmas," which I think is in 2 days. And she's like, "I had to do this emergency surgery just now, so hold your horses, So Decker says, "I'm sure you're aware of the Mutual Non-Aggression Pact signed by your cadre and other similarly aligned clubs. The American Now Treaty, it's called." And he basically says the source of that pact is the ASLC, his organization. So now we're at the QUSA, and the station is fucked up so bad that this automatic videotape Hilton Krieger made. And basically he's saying, you must have really screwed up if this videotape's playing. I'm going to keep replaying this until you fix it. So Ruben just pulls the plug. He's like, fuck you, Krieger. Even though you're dead, you're still a pain in the ass. And he's just despondent. I mean, just nothing's going his way. He's in a funk. Like a week passes, a dull blur of despair and guilt. And then on New Year's Eve, Ruben and Raul are drowning their sorrows at a bar. Mandy shows up, and I guess she's going to the New Year's party with Sam Louis Obispo. Crystal Gail Markova, his other fuck buddy, she's on duty at air control duty at the Four Worlds office. And so Ruben's like, oh, great. This is going to be a shitty New Year's. So Mayor Blitz shows up and says, hey, great news. My daughter, Media, she's getting a leave from the Rangers in Brazil. She's going to be flying in New Year's Eve tonight. And she'll be getting here any minute. And Ruben takes this opportunity, though, to give Mayor Blitz some shit. He's like, I'm convinced you bought a factory second at a discount for that robot deputy and pocketed the difference. And of course, Mayor Blitz plays dumb. He's a slick character. And Ruben's probably right. That's just the kind of thing Mayor Blitz would do. So Esther de la Cristo shows up. She says, oh, I've been carrying your Christmas present with me all week. I got you something wonderful. And she gets in this like vintage bottle of bourbon or something. And she says, what I would like for Christmas is for you to stretch the law just a little bit so I could visit Chicago. And Ruben just lets the bottle drop to the floor. He's like, a goddamn bribe. Go to hell. Ruben's not going to play their game. So he's basically going to eat alone. There's a big party at Love Canal, a New Year's party for all the long-term residents. And for the Dispers, they even throw a nice little party to cheer him up. But all of a sudden, Titania Weiss shows up. She thanks him for dropping off that schematic. And he says, why don't you, you should join me. And so they have a great time. They're dancing. They're getting along. Meanwhile, skulking in the shadows, we see these two go-punks. And one of them saying, my father helped build this mall. Now these losers roll in like it's theirs. So we're seeing lots of anti-disper sentiment from the people who hang out at the mall normally. And just sounds exactly like the anti-immigrant shit you hear now. You know, like, oh, who do they think they are coming in here? Now we cut away to the airship that Medea is flying in on. It's called the Blvds. So the captain of the Blvds, he's already partying in his cabin. He's got this half-naked woman, and he's already drinking. And he says, hey, we got to change of plans. This is like 300 miles out of Chicago. He says, usually this is where we land and you catch the bullet train into Chicago. But the weather is so nice tonight that we're going to have a nonstop party all the way to Chicago. And now we cut to the Four World Airways mission control, and Crystal Gail Markova's there on shit duty. She's kind of pissed off that she can't have fun. And then all of a sudden she gets an alert. There's a storm coming in, 75 mile per hour winds. So she gets on the phone and is like, get me the Blvds immediately. Now we cut away. And I guess Ruben and Titania have really hit it off. They're up in Ruben's room, and they are hot and heavy for each other. They're like cats in heat, these two. When Ruben is going to take her top off, he's in shock. He's like, what? And she's like, what's the problem? She's got a swastika necklace on. And Ruben's Jewish, of course. And he knows that she's Jewish. So he's like, a swastika? She's like, what do you expect from a medical officer in the North Side SS? A Nazi? Nazi, where have you been? We're the Goddard Democrats now. Yeah, Nazi. And she's like, oh, my grandfather was a Jew for Jesus back in 75. That was that. And here we see some pretty crazy Leslie Zoller coloring. Ruben looks like fucking the heat miser here to show his anger, you know? So he just turns around because she's all basically like, oh, come on, admit, doesn't it turn you on just a little how nasty it is? And he's like, fine. And he rips the swastika necklace off and basically kind of, I guess the expression is hate fucks her. It is violent, dark, and short, and anything but sweet. And when he's done, Ruben feels kind of ashamed. And he apologizes, but she says, it was incredible. You're an animal. And all of a sudden, Raoul the cat, transmits over the vid cam and says, hey, we need you, Ruben. A couple of local go-punks muscled in on the disper party, molested some girls, and a fight broke out. And someone's got a gun now and is shooting it off. So we cut away to the party. Everyone's scattered, of course. And Mandy and Luther Ironheart are there, hiding from the gunman. The gunman turns out to be the father of one of the girls who was molested. And he's like, either you give me that scum that raped my daughter, or the mayor dies. He says something much worse, which I'm not going to repeat. It is interesting in this world that Howard Chaykin predicted. I guess at the time it was 50 years in the future. Another thing Howard Chaykin predicted was the rise of fascism and racism and Nazism in America. Like in the 70s or 80s, that just seemed like it was just a bunch of yahoos, a few weirdos. And, ever since Trump, it's like, oh, wow, there's a lot of them out there. And in this world, almost half the people seem to be aligned with some fascist or racist organization. Almost like militias, So, once again, Howard Chaykin, very prescient. So we cut away to Mandy and Luther Ironheart, and she asks, how'd they get CK, that's the mayor, how'd they get CK with Bert and Ernie guarding his body? That's his robot bodyguards. And Luther's like, I accidentally shot him in the melee upstairs. Oh, Luther. When will you learn? So Ruben swashbuckles down there and disarms the assailant and then beats the crap out of him, and they arrest him. And then Crystal runs up and she tells Ruben the news. She says, the airship was heading straight into this horrible storm, and they haven't responded to any hailing frequencies in 3 hours. And we see the airship has crashed into the ground. That's kind of a cliffhanger. So now we got number 8. I really love the design of this cover. It's I had 2 copies of this back, then. I don't know how. I fucked up and bought a second copy on accident or something. And so I ripped off the cover and put it on my wall. So this image resonates with me so much. Like every day I would see it. American flag, not for sale. So Ruben and Raoul do a public service announcement, basically like, hey, stop being mean to the dispers. They need help. And, excuse me, he's talking to Raoul about how he's like, okay, Medea was on that airship, and it's been days now, and they're probably all dead. They probably have been dead since New Year's Eve. Nobody could have survived that, that storm. And then they get a call in. Animal mutilation in progress at the Rancho Deluxo, which is a division of Atomic Rooster Limited, home of Mabel the Mutant Cow. I like how Howard Chaykin always has these goofy little touches. It's telling pretty much a serious story, but... So we got these guys, they're having a firefight with the Plexus Ranger militia who's out there in the boonies. And all of a sudden they hear crumple, this crazy sound effect. And Ruben comes in like Captain America, once again playing the superhero. The whole car crashes into this window. And he shoots the assailants. Well, some of them. The militia guy, the Plexus militia, he slips on some cow poop on his way to help him. The whole time he's saying, goddamn hotshot Rangers. You'd think they never heard of a door. So Ruben makes short work of these guys. And it turns out they're not ASLCers. Because for some reason, the ASLCers are tied in with animal mutilation. That's part of their MO. I don't quite get it. Maybe they'll explain it soon. It turns out they're just hungry migrants. They were just starving, so they wanted to steal some cow meat. And Ruben says, I'll send some guys from the mall to fix that window. And the guy says, why did you use the door like a normal person? And Ruben says, normally I would have. Unfortunately, my driver couldn't reach the brake fast enough. And it's Ruben. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. It's Raoul the cat with his prosthetic hands. So look how cute he is. So Raoul, he's not very good at driving yet. So now that he's done with that, he heads over to the Chatterbox, which is the front. I think it's a strip club lounge, and it's the front for the weathermen. Those old hippie types who are preserving old pre-collapse information. So we see Bill again, and we see Harris, their leader, this old guy in the wheelchair. So Ruben basically, Raoul doesn't even know why they're there, but he's never met them before. Ruben says, guys, I can't do both my jobs. I cannot preserve law and order and run a pirate radio station by myself. Would you guys want to help me? And Raoul is just like, Ruben, what are you doing? And he's like, sorry, Ruben, this has to be. And he's like, Ruben. He's like, hush, Raoul. So he says he wants a merger with your data gathering services and my broadcast facilities. And he says, Ruben, are you nuts? Krieger would have, and he says, Krieger's dead. Raoul, I'm in charge. This is going to happen. Not another word. So they agree. They say that sounds like a great idea. And when they get back in their battle van, Raoul is just so pissed off, he's not even talking to Flagg. And Flagg is just like, Jesus Christ, I'm getting the silent treatment from a talking cat. Motherfucker. So now we cut away to Gretchen and Ernesto Klein Hernandez. They're having a little rendezvous or whatever out in the woods. I guess they thought it would mix things up and be exciting to leave the mall and have sex in the snow in the woods. So they're heading back to the mall, and they see a little hitchhiker. It's a little girl. So it looks like they're gonna pick her up. We'll find out in a second. Because we cut away, and now we're back at the mall. And Mayor Blitz says, what the hell are you doing here, Ruben? You should be out searching for my daughter. And Ruben lays it down for him. He's like, I'm sorry. I sympathize with you, Your Honor. But they're probably dead. All the other search parties have called it a day. And I got a job to do. Sorry. You got to face reality. So he gets another call. Another incident is happening. This is Henry. He's another Plex Ranger. And he calls in. He says, they found the airship. 11 people were found dead, but that means 13 people walked away, including Media Blitz. So Ruben's like, in this weather, they've been exposed for a week. They're probably dead, but, the mayor's going to chew my ass out if I don't do something. So he calls another search party. They're going to try to find these people who are probably dead. And then all of a sudden, Ruben looks up in shock. And who should it be? But it's Media Blitz. Plexus Ranger Media Blitz, reporting for duty, sir. And she's with Titania Weiss. Titania Weiss is pretty much propping her up. I mean, Medea Blitz is not doing well. She's half dead. And she says, what's going on? She said, the others are all in the Mediplex. She insisted at gunpoint that I bring her here, raving about something to prove. And when she comes to, tell her I said this, and she says some racist shit because she's a Nazi. Medea's half black, half white. So now we cut away. We see Gretchen and Ernesto, after they picked up that little girl, all of a sudden this van came out of nowhere, battle van, and they're firing guns at them, trying to knock them off the road. And Gretchen just figures, they must be freeway men. And the little girl says, they're not crooks. It's my dad. Now we're back at the Meta Center at the mall. Medea's healing well, healing nicely. Everyone's congratulating her. The mayor's very proud, very happy she's alive. And Medea basically tells Ruben that, she was such a spoiled little brat. But when the moment of truth came, she found this inner reserve of strength. And she totally took charge and saved everyone, led them out of the woods. And when Titania Weiss came upon him in her car, she wasn't even going to stop for him. So Medea pulled a gun on her and said, stop. You're taking us to the mall. And she basically wants to thank Ruben for giving her the tough love down in Brazil. But it's kind of weird. I guess Arcadia Driftwood, who was in charge of her, commanding officer, she enrolled her in shock therapy. And so I don't know, she's not the same person anymore. I don't know if that's a good thing, getting part of your personality shocked out of you. But she is definitely not a little princess anymore and very responsible. So for some reason, she gives the flight recorder, she gave it to De La Cristo, which I don't get, because why wouldn't you give it to your superiors or someone who's American at least? So now we cut back to Gretchen and Ernesto. They've got Ernesto tied to a tree. I think he's got a noose on him, and they're beating the shit out of him. They're basically telling Gretchen how they're going to, rape her, put her up in a shack somewhere, and have stag parties with her every weekend. And one of them's about to kill Ernesto, and a gunshot rings out, kills him. And Luther Ironheart and Ruben Flagg show up to the rescue. And the guys make a getaway, though. Except for the guys they shot, of course. But they do save Gretchen and Ernesto. They're fine. And when they go in Ernesto's car to see what's up with this little hitchhiker girl, she's got ASLC tattooed on her forehead. She's just a little girl, though. And so, obviously, her father and his friends are ASLC. So they put her in a jail cell, just, it's the only bed they have for protection. And he says, hey, Luther, you know that impression you do of me when you think I'm not looking? And Luther plays dumb, but he's like, come on, I know you do. Come on, Pinocchio. And so he tells him to turn his hollow face to Ruben's face. And he says, okay, I got this little mission to do. I don't want anyone I need an alibi. So you're going to pretend to be me. Keep the rest of your body at a camera range, and don't use infer when you mean imply. I like this. In the next scene, Mayor Blitz and Esther are talking. And he's like, oh, it's so nice of Flagg to invite us to dinner. And Mayor Blitz says, it's strange, though. I called the ranger office to thank him. He was obviously so doped up he couldn't sit up straight. And after he said imply for the 12th time, I hung up. So it's Howard Chaykin's wry sense of humor. He's pretty funny. So Ruben is sneaking into Esther's quarters. Like she's got a computer because he wants to see the flight recorder. And it's hooked up to her video unit very conveniently. And he can't make out who shot the airship. I forgot to mention that. That's another thing Medea told Reuben, to his surprise. Everyone just thought the ship crashed because the weather. No, it was shot out of the sky. But then while Reuben's fiddling around with her computer, he finds the deed that, since the second issue or first issue, this has been a secret. But now Reuben knows. This is the deed giving Brazil, selling Brazil, the state of Illinois, property of Plex USA. So Reuben, of course, is like, what the fuck? And he says, one, there's two theories about this. De La Cristo is a bunco artist pulling some kind of scam. Or two, the Plex is actually selling the states out from under us. So, meanwhile, Raul is still giving everyone the silent treatment. He's being all petulant. So Luther comes up with a great solution. He says, since you want to play dumb animal, let's see how you feel being treated like one. And he gives Raul to the cute little girl in the jail cell. And she's like, oh, kitty. And Raul's just like, I'll kill you, Luther. I swear. So Reuben gets a vid call from Esther. And she invites him up to her apartment for some dinner. And Reuben's like, yeah, we need to talk. So he goes up there. She's already in the hot tub. And she's like, why don't you join me? He's like, nah, I don't feel like taking off my clothes. But this is the weird thing. This hot tub is full of compote de la Cristo. It's a family recipe, I guess. She's soaking in it. He says it feels remarkable. But Reuben just takes off his jacket and is sitting next to her chatting. And he's eating the compote that she's soaking in. It's kind of gnarly. And he's feeling a little dopey while he's talking to her. And he passes out right in the compote. She drugged him. The compote was drugged. She kicks him over and runs out. So the next morning, Reuben wakes up. He runs to the Plex station, the Plex Ranger station, and says, where's De La Cristo? And Luther says, she rolled through here with Klein Hernandez and a couple of bodyguards about 4 a.m, picked up the keys to a van, and went into the city, which he's not supposed to do. And Reuben says, on whose authority? And he said, yours. So apparently she forged Reuben's signature on these papers. And of course he calls Luther an idiot again. And Luther's just like, no. What a nice guy. What a sweet dummy. And then all of a sudden, though, Reuben smells something odd. And he says, do you smell something? He's like, well, I can't smell, but I can analyze the air, a chemical analysis. And he identifies a biological weapon that affects nervous systems of higher orders with limited effect on lower forms. So he runs to the jail cell, and the little girl's totally dead. And under her, luckily still alive, is Raul, the cat. And he is so shaken. He's like, in the middle of the night, I smelled something weird, and before I could cry out, she rolled on top of me, started throwing up, first food, then blood. I don't feel so good either. And look how adorable Raul looks here. Oh my God. Poor Raul. I mean, that's a horrifying night. I mean, God, being trapped under a dead girl who's just puking on you all night. So what it looks like Ernesto and Esther poisoned this little girl on their way out. So Reuben's pissed off. He's heading downtown. He's going to get to the bottom of this. Luther says, hey, you're forgetting your shield. And he says, wrong, Luther. I'm not forgetting a damn thing. So Reuben's had his fill of this Plex, all this fucking corruption. He's, as the series progresses, we'll see, he wises up and becomes more of a rebel. I like this. In town to do some business with a big iron on his hip. Big iron on his hip. Number 9, here we go. So it's the Plex News. talking about the diaspora. And all of a sudden it gets jammed by this guy in a mask. It's the right stuff. Fast Facts gives you its half answers. I'll give you the tough questions. So it's this pirate transmission jamming in, asking these questions like, how come Ernesto Klein Hernandez and Esther de la Cristo are hobnobbing with, nationalist paramilitary organizations like the ASLC? What's going on? But then they get knocked off the air. And then the mayor and Gretchen are talking to Luther. They're like, where's Ruben and Raul? And he tells them the story. And Gretchen can't believe it. She isn't surprised by Esther doing something so heinous, but Ernesto, her lover, she loves this guy. And she's like, no, he couldn't have done it. He's got to be innocent. Now we cut away to the bullet train from Peoria. It's about 5 minutes out of the Chicago Plex Mall. And there's Titania Weiss is talking to this mystery guy. We don't see him for a while. And this is, I guess, that thing that she sent, the specs. This guy's got no legs. It's for his prosthetic legs. And then all of a sudden, this guy looks out the window and he sees Ruben Flagg and he knows him. And he's actually like going to reach for a gun. He's like, there's a gun in my luggage. Please grab it. I got to kill this guy. And she's like, what? No, you can't do that now. You ruined the whole plan. Settle down. So meanwhile, we hear Ruben, while he's on his snowmobile outside, he's talking to Bill. And he's like, Bill, I wish you would have cleared that with me, jamming the fast facts. We can't be that blatant. And then Bill is actually calling because he's caught in the middle of a firefight. 2 Jewish offense brigadiers are throwing fire from the L. And they're using a balloon as observation deck, which that's another no-no to the Plex. So we see these guys kind of buffoonish. And Ruben shows up to clean house. Grabs one of their bazookas and just blows up the guy in the balloon. So now he's back at the chatterbox talking to Harris and Bill. And they're going to help him pinpoint where they might have taken, where Cristo, De La Cristo and Klein Hernandez might be. Here's the data you wanted, Ruben, and it's Mandy. She's pretty much hanging out with the weatherman all the time. She has a thing with Bill. And she finds out that there's a council of genetic warlords at the Lightning Bar in Kenmore. I'm sorry, just general warlords of all the Go gangs. It's sponsored by the Committee for New Brasilia. Chairperson of the committee is Esther Maria de la Cristo. And they're at the Lightning Bar, which is a rough joint. She said, you need backup? He's like, no. Kind of rude to her. And she says, hey, how come she wants to see Chicago so bad? And it's like, you'd be hot and bothered to visit Chicago, too, if you just traded an unimaginable tonnage of precious metal in exchange for the land, rights, titles, and deeds to the state of Illinois. So these guys are like, what? I think this might be the first person that, people that Ruben told this to. So now we cut back to Titania Weiss. And they picked up his prosthetic legs. And this guy, who we still don't know who he is, he's still ranting about how he wants to painfully murder Ruben Flagg and Raul the cat. So just kind of this nice little character moment between Mayor Blitz and Gretchen. Because he's been banging he's been banging Esther de la Cristo. But just, it's just fun. But he realizes, he's like, Gretchen, man, you're really falling for this guy, Ernesto, huh? And she's like, yeah, I've never felt like this before. She says he makes me vibrate. So this guy's just a sweet little moment. Not many of those in American Flagg. So Ruben shows up at this this bar, this meeting place. The guards are like, this is off limits to Plexus Rangers. And Ruben just knocks him out, hog ties him to this thing. And when it's just a nice party in there. The guys are there with their wives. Everyone has cabin fever. They've been stuck at home, so they're just like, this is great. It's an excuse to go out under truce. Because these guys are all enemies, normally. So Ruben comes in, and they're just like, obviously not happy. They're like, what the hell are you doing here? And he says, I want the woman who sponsored this get-together. And her bodyguard. This guy gives Ruben some lip. He's from the Glow Boys Go Gang. So Ruben runs his ID. Says, hey, what crimes does this guy have? And it turns out one of them is rape. He's been arrested for. So Ruben just shoots him in the balls. And he says, if any more of you guys want to be candidates for harem guards, you better start giving me some cooperation. These guys aren't intimidated. They all reach for their guns. He's so outnumbered and outgunned. But then, luckily, Mandy shows up with this amazing-looking, burp gun. She's got them all covered. And finally, this one guy's going to talk and tell Ruben some info. So he says it's really weird he says it didn't seem like it was a bodyguard situation. It seemed like a kidnapper and their victim. Because these four, militia types came in with a woman in handcuffs in lingerie. That didn't sit real well with the wives. Then these guys offered to let us all, take a crack at her. And the women really didn't like that. And then it turns out they're from the ASCL. They started handing out ASCL pamphlets only to the white guys. So, of course, everyone was just like, get the fuck out of here. So they beat it pronto. They knew they weren't wanted. And he tells them that they were headed northwest. And Ruben's like, hey, that's headhunter territory. It's kind of like a no zone. So these guys got Ernesto all tied up. They're about to kill him. Meanwhile, inside the van, Esther de la Cristo, she's a cunning, crafty woman. She's totally, spinning a little silk around one of her captors. She's just like, you're not like the others, Warren. You're gentle. Thank you, ma'am. Call me Esther. So she's an operator, this one. And right when this guy's about to shoot Ernesto, this napalm goes off. This guy's just turned into goulash. Look at that. It looks like meatloaf. So now we're back at the mall in a disper tent in Silverville. Titania is operating on that mystery guy, putting the legs on him. She's with her, got her Democrat buddies. So she says, don't get me wrong, I believe fascism is the only hope for America, but some of Decker's ideology borders on the psychopathic. So she has her doubts about this guy. And the mystery guy, he says, I couldn't agree more. Decker is completely crazed. That's why I'm kind of I'm the power behind the throne. If you guys are smart as you look, you'll stick with me. So he's got his new legs. Still don't know exactly who it is. But Raul seems to recognize him because there's a window in this little tent, and Raul says, I need a drink. I'm hallucinating dead men. And so as they leave that bar, Mandy's just totally berating Ruben for being such a chucklehead, for going in there alone, almost dying. And he's riding his snowmobile alongside of her, and they're arguing. He kind of admits that the reason he's been so kind of rude with her is because he's kind of jealous about her hooking up with Bill. They still got this whole, old-time Hollywood romance going on. Preston Sturges shit. And Mandy smells something. It smells like gasoline. And all of a sudden, this van almost runs him off the road. Or Mandy's car off the road. So Mandy says, go get him. I'm fine. Ruben jumps in the van. And he sees that guy that Esther was, buttering up. And he brains the guy with his rifle butt. Just right through the glass. And, of course, the van goes out of control. And he says, Esther, jump. The van's about to crash. And Esther's like, no. Fuck. So he totally goes off this bridge into the lake. The icy lake. He says, I'm going to have to bring you in for questioning as an accessory to murder, Esther. She's like, who's murder? Screw you. I've got diplomatic credentials. Everything was fine until you stuck your nose in. And your damn Plex tried to rip me off. But I had it all on tape. Records, deeds, currency transfers, everything. Damn it, I owned all of Illinois and anything I wanted of Indiana. Now, thanks to you, those records are at the bottom of the Chicago River. And they're just melted slag. So she totally admits the whole plan, what she's been up to. And she says, he asks her, where's Ambassador Klein Hernandez? Shot in the back of the head. Ruben's thinking to himself, under his breath, he's like, cold-blooded bitch. And she's so mad at Ruben still. She's like, I had that, that ASLC guy right where I wanted him. I even convinced him to drive me back to the mall instead of rendezvousing with his pals at some downtown flesh bar. Flesh bar? She says that's what the explosives were for. Some nonsense about the King of England working at a topless joint. And, of course, Mandy and Ruben are like, oh, shit. So they run over to the chatterbox. And they abducted Bill. Killed a bunch of people. They drove him off, though, but they got Bill. And all of a sudden, while they're in there on the TV, the Plex station, they hear Titania Weiss. And she says, a reward is being offered of 25,000 intercreds for information leading to the arrest of former Plexus Ranger Ruben Flagg. Like, it's almost like while they were doing this, the ASLC somehow had a coup. It seems like they're kind of in charge of the mall. Hopefully they'll explain it next issue, but they don't really explain what just happened, like how quickly they took over the mall. And the guy with the prosthetic legs is a ranger. He's wearing a ranger jacket. They just basically said, hey, we're in charge now. Now you're a Plexus Ranger. They shut down Luther with the little remote. And they're handing out propaganda. A lot of people are saying, hey, this makes a lot of sense, this ASLC stuff. I think I'm going to support them. And as we finally get to see the guy, it's John Scheisskopf from the first 3 issues. The Nazi guy who Raoul and Ruben, they thought they killed him. But he just lost his legs, I guess. So he's talking to the camera, and he says, we're going to set things right tonight. We're going to broadcast live the trial, conviction, and execution of the King of England. And Ruben Flagg, if you're watching, you're next. And there's Bill in a cage with his crown on. Because I don't know if you remember, the ASLC, for some reason, are very anti-British. That's part of their whole thing. They're anti-Jew, anti-Black, and anti-British, and anti-Italian. So this story arc ends right there, State of the Union. And kind of more than a cliffhanger, it seems like it's just the first half of the story. But yeah, I can't wait to find out what happens. Hopefully they'll explain what the hell's going on with the ASLC all of a sudden being in charge. Because they kind of glossed over that. So there you go, American Flagg. Howard Chaykin's American Flagg, number 7 through 9, State of the Union. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did reading it. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed in the art is still, like, good. It just just seems more perfunctory now. I mean, just great storytelling. Totally tells the story. But I remember those first 3 issues, there was a lot of panels that stood out. Like, ooh, look at that panel. Ooh, look at that panel. Everything in here is just pretty much, some talking heads to move the plot along. Even when there's action, it's just kind of like, okay. So, slight dip in quality in the art, even though it's still well drawn. But it does seem like, I don't know if maybe he's probably getting a little burned out. In 9 months, he's written and drawn 9 full issues of this. I don't know how many writer-artists have done that many without a break on a monthly schedule. But still, I love this stuff. Great stuff. And can't wait till next time we look at 10 through 12. So thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.